Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to take a look at my Shadow Shiny Tyranitar for the Great League here for the Halloween Cup. This Pokemon is actually in the top 20 for the best Pokemon for this cup, so let's see if this actually is true. We're going to have a team here with Fortress in the lead, as well as Greninja as our Saisorp. Of course, we have a Dark type as a Saisorp to try to bait out a potential Fairy type Pokemon. Here with Greninja, of course, you're going to still have access to some coverage for Carbink, which is the main reason why you kind of want to use it. Very common Saisorp here. We are struggling a little bit against those Azumarill as well as like Tapu Fini if we're going to encounter them. But otherwise, this team looks actually kind of fine. The only weakness of our lead is going to be Fire-type Pokemon / Fire-type attacks. So we're going to have two answers for this in the back here as well. Especially, of course, our Tyranitar lurking in the back. Having access to Smackdown is going to be very interesting. But I feel like it's most likely going to be a little bit worse than compared to the last few seasons where we had the Halloween Cup. Main reason for this, there are more ground-type Pokemon. There are more bulky Pokemon. Before it was a little bit squishier, but nowadays it's a little bit trickier to play. But here we're going to encounter some Poke-AK in the back here, so we're going to be able to just go ahead and go for a Night Slash, which is going to get the shield. We can go for another Night Slash. And of course, to complete the algorithm, we're going to go ahead and go into our Tyranitar to smack down the opponent. There's nothing the opponent can do here at this point of time. The best play is to go for the Iron Head, which is definitely true and definitely works out well for them. So let's move on to the next one. We're going to encounter now the Palossand in the lead, and that's going to be an awkward one for us, as we're going to be able to swap out into our Greninja. We can go for the Night Slash, and this is going to do some decent amount of damage, but it's not going to do enough damage to really get the shield here with the second one, right? Sadly not. Great play by the opponent though to let those moves go through, because if they shield one and I get a boost, like of course the second one would knock them out. But luckily we can still survive a one charge move here from the opponent with the awkward here, allowing us to go for a Night Slash, and we can just move into our Fortress, which is going to be able to take those moves really easily, as they're usually running Outrage or Gang Shot. Neither of them really care too much here towards the Fortress, but we can still try to go for the Earthquake here against the opponent. We have to get them low because we have to rely on our Tyranitar in the back. Tyranitar is going to be our best chance of basically winning this game, and you have to get the opponent low, because for Tyranitar it does not matter if you resist the fast move. As long as you don't have insane amount of bulk as well, you're still going to basically get hurt from the Smackdown if you will be basically neutral against it. Here we're going to see the super effective damage against the opponent's Charger Bug, and as you're going to see here, we can go for one Brutal Swing, we can go for another Brutal Swing, and at this point of time the opponent gonna go down. Tyranitar is just sweeping here the backline, and this is going to be a very good game. So we were even able to come back from like horrible leads. But now we're going to take a look at the next opponent, which is going to run the worst possible Pokemon to encounter for this team, which is going to be the Toxicroak. Toxicroak is usually running Mudshot nowadays, at least like in like higher up metas, which is actually in. But this player is still running Counter, which is way worse for me. There are not a lot of Counter users, but I encountered actually quite a few of them while I played this team, which I found also kind of interesting. I encountered quite a few as Cavalier. I'm not sure if every battle of those are in here. Like again, I played like 3 sets, and 3 sets would be like 30 minutes nearly, not 30, but like 25, and I didn't want to have such a long video for the Halloween Cup right now, but we will be able to go for another Hydro Cannon against the opponent tomorrow as well. Going to be interesting, because you're going to have more Shadow Pokemon available, which I'm going to showcase as well. We have like all the new Shadow Pokemon coming up, which I hopefully going to be able to showcase on my channel. Hopefully also Shadow Sneasler, where some stuff got found in the code for it, but it wasn't really announced. Hopefully this coming out as well. There are quite a lot of decent cool Pokemon coming out tomorrow, so definitely stay tuned for this. Here we're going to encounter the Carbink, and yeah, sadly Carbink is too much for me to handle, and we can move on to the next game. Let's see what they are going to run here. We're going to have the Sableye in the lead. We're going to be able to swap out into our Greninja here against the opponent's Sableye, and we're going to get out the Toxapex. And honestly, I think this was like one of the games where I was like, why did I play it like this? Because what you're going to see here is actually quite interesting. The opponent is going to just take those moves. Of course, Night Slash does not boost for me. Like, I'm honestly, like the amount of Night Slashes, I kind of wanted to count them during the battles. I haven't done that yet, but I'm fairly certain I'm way below the odds. Like every 8 yeah, Night Slash is here supposed to get a buff. Here we of course not gonna get anything either. But I decided to use both of my shields, which in hindsight was a really stupid decision. But of course I couldn't know what they have in the bag. But if you're going to see now what they're going to have in the bag, you're going to know why I am kinda sad about doing it like this. They're going to have a Charger Bug in the bag. So they have a Toxapex, which we're going to resist the fast move with our Tyranitar. We're going to have the Sableye, which I'm going to resist with my Tyranitar, as well as doing neutral damage against them. And then we have a Charger Bug, which we don't resist, but do super effective damage or smackdown against it. So yeah, basically this would have been such an amazing game for Tyranitar if we just gave it the opportunity, but we didn't. So this is kind of sad for me, because it would have been such a cool game here for us if we could have just went for the full farm done with the Tyranitar. But my opponent lets those moves go through, which I find kind of interesting. But I guess they want to go for the 2-shield flex against me. But also, I guess they forgot that they're going to have still a Charger Bug with a move start in the back, because I didn't go for it, for whatever reason. Next opponent, against someone that I actually know as well, a very cool dude, Sir Corey here. Not legend yet, so definitely also fine if we're going to lose this one. Actually a decent lead for me, like I think this is a positive lead for me, so it's going to be kind of nice. But I feel like I screwed up this game a little bit. I want to go for the Mirror Shot. Mirror Shot has a 30% chance of debuffing the opponent's attack. Of course, we are not going to get it here. Also, I want to just bait the Earthquake, but we still should be able to get to the Earthquake in time here, which we do. And so we can either get the shield or the knockout, or like, not actually the knockout. The knockout, it wouldn't knock them out, they're not even close, but we would have got some damage onto them, but we're gonna get the shield from the opponent. And I kind of misplay everything here, because here we're gonna see the Brine coming through, and I should have just went for a Brutal Swing, because I feel like Brutal Swing would have done enough from that range, but yeah, I didn't go for it. So I wasn't 100% sure about it, that's why I didn't really go for it. But like this, okay, we're gonna get out of this matchup with 100 energy, but the opponent swaps into their Carbink, which literally can just soak any kind of energy anyway, and I decided to just go for the Brutal Swing without even looking at it. And also I stay in for this matchup a little bit too long. I could have went for the Stone Edge basically immediately and swap out, but at least we can still go for a Hydro Cannon with Greninja, which is going to be nice, but they're going to try to get, of course, to the Moonblast here, which is going to get the knockout against me. Carbink honestly is just so busted. This Pokemon is just so broken. But we're going to be able to swap into our Tyranitar. I had to hope that the opponent would swap out here, which they didn't, and like this, we're gonna get farmed down. Good game there. Could have played better, but I'm fine losing against them. Next one coming up, we're going to have another Carbink. If only I would... Yeah, I just don't really enjoy this Pokemon too much. It is a very strong Pokemon though. I like when I play it myself, but it is just very busted. Honestly, like, this Pokemon is very busted. And we actually get an attack drop against the opponent. That's amazing. Fortress is basically doing what Fortress is supposed to do in this kind of meta. It's basically breaking the most common core of Toxapex and Carbink. And it's fairly likely that the opponent is going to have something in the back that Fortress is kind of good against. So I decided to swap out here. Like usually, people run this team with Greninja as a safe swap. Having game knowledge or like in general team knowledge for opponents is really huge to play around it. But the opponent decides to go into the Carbink here, which is interesting. So, interesting matchup there, but we can go for the Stone Edge, which they're going to let go through, which is kind of interesting, and we can let this move go through. Actually going to be the Moonblast. But we're going to see what they're going to have in the back, which is going to be Jellicent, which is, I guess, a little bit better for me, but it's actually still not really that ideal. If you didn't know, Jellicent actually is not the greatest matchup for Greninja, because yes, you're going to do super effective damage with Night Slash, you're going to two-shot it as well. If the opponent has a one-shield advantage and goes for the bait here with a Surf, which is also a smart decision, it's going to be a little bit tough, because one Shadow Ball and one Surf is all it takes to knock out a Greninja, even though it's resisted because Greninja has basically no bulk. So as you're going to see here, the opponent gonna go for a Surf, and I have to basically catch the Surf, but no, the opponent catches my move. So yeah, now the opponent has a ton of energy stored. I have to try to get some extra energy here, and I have to try to catch the move, and I will be able to do exactly this. So it's going to be really an uphill battle at this point. I can still try to go for a charge move. It does not work out quite yet, and we have to still reach the Night Slash. They are super lucky they were just at the move, and we're still going to be able to win this game. So good game to the opponent. Moving on, let's take a look at what the next opponent going to run here, another Carbink. So I guess, honestly, I got quite a few decent leads with this team. I have to say that. Definitely a lot of Carbink, which is something that you kind of want to see. But you're still actually going to lose a zero shield scenario if you don't get the debuff, I think, with your Fortress, which is kind of sad. Because Mirror Shot is whilst double super effective, still only doing around like 40%, or not even, I think 30% or something, which is absolutely wild. I mean, it's a stab double super effective move and just doesn't do enough damage, really. But we can still go ahead and go for another Hydro Cannon here. This is going to do some decent damage against the opponent. I can reach another one, and they might want to let this move go through, thinking that this is just a Night Slash, and they do exactly this, revealing their Golbat, and the Golbat has to say goodbye here as the Tyranitar swaps in. Next opponent is going to be basically running exactly what I don't want to face. It's going to be the Tapu Fini here, which is going to be a little bit easier to deal with, I feel like, than the Azumarill in some ways, but also not really, because you're going to take more damage on this Pokemon, but also you're going to get to surf fairly easily, so that's going to be a little tricky. And here I was thinking that I still survive it and want to swap out with a move stored. It turns out I do not survive it. And I can swap into my Greninja, but they're going to have a Swilus in the back, and it is not looking good. Our Tyranitar is trying their best, trying to smack them down, as they're going to go ahead and go for the Body Slam. We can still survive, and we can go for the Brutal Swing to try to get the opponent low or get the shield, and we're gonna get the shield here, which is kind of fine for me, as we can now still try to win this game. The opponent seems to be a little bit weak against Greninja, that's why they used a shield there, as they can still, of course, go for a Body Slam. I decide to go for the bait here. Let's see if this was correct. Let's see if they're going to shield this move up. They do. So they must be weak against me, and I make a huge mistake here. I should have went for my Hydro Cannon, but I didn't, and the opponent still gets to a charge move here. I was just hoping that Night Slash would be enough, but it wasn't, and we will see the Tapu Fini coming in. And like this, we will never know what they had in the back, because they most likely were actually weak against me, but this going to hit, and we can move on to the next game now. We're going to encounter basically the best lead that we could possibly get with a Fortress, as you're gonna now see the Drapion swapping in. We can go for the Brutal Swing against the opponent most likely, and that's most likely already going to knock them out nearly. They're gonna go for the Crunch, and luckily I don't get the debuff here, but I'm a little bit scared here still of the next matchup, because they might be able to knock me out or farm me down otherwise, and they're gonna get the debuff now, which of course sucks, but I can still go ahead and go for a Brutal Swing, getting a shield, and now they will not be able to realign here. There's no chance that they're going to be able to realign. Our Tyranitar always going to farm them down in the 2-shield scenario, also allowing us to go for a Stone Edge here against the Venus, so they're not gonna shield this move up for sure, and I can just smack them down. In comes the Scissor, and I have to hope. Please no Exeter, please no Trailblaze. Both of those moves are moves that it learns, which would be super effective here, but most of the time, the most common one is Iron Head and Night Slash. Let's see what it is going to be here. It's going to be Iron Head, so we're going to be able to easily win this game. Moving on, next game, we're going to have another great lead for us. Swile is going to be amazing for me, as we do super effective damage while the opponent does resisted damage against me. I can still go ahead and go for one charge move here with the Mirror Shot. The opponent lets this move go through, and they decide to swap out into the Nidoqueen. And I might have played this a little bit worse here, like a little bit bad, as I'm going to be able to go for the Night Slash. I thought that I might still be able to survive another Poison Fang here and still get to another charge move afterwards. Turns out I don't. So yeah, I clearly don't really know the matchup between the Nidoqueen as well as the Greninja. Something to learn for. You cannot take a Poison Fang, which is kind of wild because Poison Fang is not really a strong move. But of course, Nidoqueen is doing so much damage with the buffed Shadow variant there, with the Poison Jab there as well, especially after the debuff. It's just wild. We're going to be able to use a shield here onto the Earth Power, which is great, and we're going to get out of this matchup with a ton of energy stored, as the opponent decided to swap back into their Swilus. I can try to go for a charge move, but they're actually going to go for the Dark Pulse, going to knock me out, and they have a Mawile in the back, and there's not a lot that I can do about this. Mawile again is going to kind of algorithm me here, as they're going to be able to just knock out my Tyranitar. Maybe I should try to swap my lead or something, and I would have been better off, but this is going to be it for this game. Let's move on to the next one. Final game for today, we're going to have a Pelosand in the lead again, which is going to be a little bit awkward for us, as we're going to be able to try to at least go ahead and go for the Earthquake against the opponent. They're going to go for the Scorching Sand here first. I'm going to swap out now with the moves that I had basically stored. And honestly, against Azumarill, I'm fairly certain that I am going to be able to just go for the Hydro Cannon and maybe actually realign in the 2-shield scenario. But it's going to be a little bit awkward because, again, we're kind of getting RPS'd here, as we're going to have one of the worst possible leads, the worst possible say-swap for us, as well as we're going to now take the Player off here. We're going to try to go for 2 Hydro Cannons, as we will see here that the opponent is going to let this move go through. They're still not even in range for another Hydro Cannon. I tried to swap out in time onto the Player off into my Fortress, but it sadly does not work out, and the opponent decides to swap out themselves into their Mana Boss, which is of course a huge mistake against my team, as we're going to have our Tyranitar in the back, going to be able to take those aerial aces, and we can go for the nearly full farm down. And in hindsight, I should have most likely went for the full farm down, because I still would have survived another charge move. I think most likely would have been the best play that I could have went for, but now it's going to be still a very close one. I'm going to be able to still go for another charge move here, getting the shield from the opponent. I know that I have still a move slot on my Greninja, but sadly I die on the brutal swing, which is going to be brutal, as I should have went here also into my Fortress instead of my Greninja, as the opponent has their move stored, and sadly the Scorching Sand is going to do enough damage there to knock me out here, as well as our Fortress is going to be able to take one, but it's not going to be able to sweep endgame. So I think if I went into my Fortress instead, I would have had a great chance of winning this game. But I didn't, so I lose this game, like, rightfully, to be fair, as I can still try my best with a Mirror Shot, but this is going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you tomorrow, especially for all the Shadow Pokemon.